Good morning, Land Skills Network and the Landman Pivot Podcast. This morning we have special guest with us, Robert Hyatt, who's a member of our Land Skills Network community. And we're talking about career transitions and pivot. So, Robert, tell us a little bit about you, give us a little bit of background, and then we'll get into your recent transition.
Well, I've always considered myself a solar bug. It started with my grandfather. He was putting solar hot water on his house and photovoltaics on camper trailers back in the 80s. And I've always thought that was fascinating. And it's always been in the back of my mind. And as I started my educational background, I've decided to be an architect, so I went up to Moscow, Idaho to study architecture. And at the same time, got into the electronics, became a draftsman, got an intern, became an intern as a draftsman there, drawing circuitry for anaerobic wastewater facilities, designing the circuitry that control those. I got laid off. That was quite tragic. Ended up moving back down from Idaho back down to Utah and got into with my brother Rod Hyatt, who does solar hot water and photovoltaic. And at the time I wasn't in school, but I got a lot of great experience in construction, doing those things in hot water, solar hot water and photovoltaics. I felt that I needed to get back into education because education is where it's at. You need to have that paper to be credible. So I went back to Utah State University and worked on an interdisciplinary degree in engineering and environmental science. I would not recommend that because I had to report to two different committees instead of one. So, but I successfully did that after a few more years. And while I was still in school, I got a kind of a job with the campus at the crop physiology lab there at Utah State University. And there I had a great exposure to agriculture, but also the equipment that they use to monitor it. So a lot of data loggers and sensors and controls mechanisms. And they mainly use products made by Campbell Scientific here in the Cache Valley. And so I had a lot of exposure to programming and analog circuits and sensors and digital sensors as well. And getting that experience is what got me my next job into Campbell Scientific, where I spent the next 14 years getting a great experience and background in instrumentation, measurement, and all sorts of markets, solar, agriculture, bridge monitoring, water and groundwater monitoring. So a lot of diverse markets there. I really enjoyed my previous employer, Campbell Scientific. The atmosphere was amazing. The engineers were very talented and very skilled. And the thing was, it was a shared knowledge. If you had questions, if you didn't know the answer, you could find some engineer or somebody that could figure that out for you and help you solve that problem. So I gained a lot of experience and a lot of background there at Campbell Scientific. I went from sales, representing Campbell Scientific for a couple of years, and then I went right into the renewable energy group where I focused strictly on monitoring atmospheric conditions and power performance for the gigantic solar arrays, the huge ones in Saudi Arabia that are, hundreds and hundreds of acres large. But after a while, doing the same thing for that many years, working with the same equipment, you just kind of start wandering, I guess, and trying to figure out, is there something else out there for me? And so I started exploring. I started looking at LinkedIn and Glassdoor and saw that there's some neat opportunities, but you're self-conscious and you think, oh man, I'll never be able to step up to that position. That sounds amazing,
So with Campbell, did you end up doing quite a bit of travel for those kind of projects too?
Yes, I did. When I was in the sales group, I traveled mainly domestically. I had a I had the Midwest territory, and then I had the Northwest territory. So got to know a lot of the states and found some favorites. Once I went into the renewable group, I began to travel internationally, traveled to Oman, did some water monitoring there, traveled to Abu Dhabi, Saudi Arabia, installed some solar monitoring systems there. And getting to know the culture was amazing. Great people there. I loved it. It was a great experience. So yeah, I got to Hawaii a couple of times. That was kind of neat. Never been to there. So in the process of discovering what's out there next, I started signing up to LinkedIn and Glassdoor and exploring. But making that step is just really scary. You just don't know, and there's a risk too. And finally, I don't know, one day I just decided, I'm putting in my letter of resignation. I didn't even have a job. I didn't even have any prospects. I just put it in my letter of resignation. It was about 6 months out. So my employer's like, okay, that's kind of weird. But it gave me a deadline to where I had to find something. And I was even going to sell the house and just move out of state too. I was really going all out. But it was quite amazing. I had several different interviews all over the US, and this one was very successful. And I said, but I'm not going to start until September of the end of this year, because I'm waiting for a big bonus check, and that's always nice. And they asked me how much it was, and I told them, and they said, no problem, that'll be your sign on. And okay, and it was the perfect job. In fact, before I had had the interview, and when I was still looking at this position, I took the position to a colleague at Campbell, and he looked at it and he says, well, you can do that. You can do that. You've done that for many years. You've done that. You've done that. Why don't you apply? And I thought, why don't I apply? So I applied to it and ended up getting it. And it's been a great trip. And I don't think I would have ever left Campbell Scientific had I not thrown in that letter of resignation. I had to force myself to step out because it was such a great place to work, great people to work with. It was a perfect career.
So yeah, to kind of address that question of what spurred the transition, was it just feeling like you weren't really growing anymore? Were you getting bored with the routine?
Yeah, I felt like I think I could have grown more, but it took more energy because you get so comfortable. It would take more energy to grow more. So anybody can always grow more in a position.
Kind of that diminishing returns. It took more effort to make progress.
Right. And maybe a little laziness starts setting in because it's always the same, and the same problems that you've been seeing for many, many, many years, and just with different customers. So it was that said, maybe there's some other problems somewhere else that I can help with.
Wow, that's a bold move. I know that's something that will benefit some members of this community who are thinking about making a move. Might consider that as an option. Set a deadline, and a 6-month resignation letter. That's pretty innovative.
But I do have to say that I was amazed at how many job positions there are out there. There are so many companies that are clamoring, that are fighting for good trained employees that have good skills, and they will pay top dollar out there. There are so many. I'm still getting headhunters trying to contact me, and there's still tons of jobs out there, not just in my field, but I've seen in other fields. There's thousands of jobs available that are great paying for skilled workers.
That's awesome. So what helped you in making this transition? What do you think made it go as smooth as it has?
I'm actually very surprised on how smooth it went. Like I said, we were planning on selling the house, kind of capitalizing on the Utah market, going and buying a new house with cash, being debt free. And so it was really nerve-wracking to just do that. But it was surprisingly, everything just fell into place. I had to go back to Campbell Scientific and say, oh, by the way, I'm not leaving in September. I'm leaving in 2 weeks because I have an employer, a new employer that wants me now. And they said, well, thank you for telling us. You've already given us 4 weeks. So 2 weeks more, or 2 more weeks is even just fine. So they were very pleasant and okay with me leaving as soon as I did, because I gave them such a long warning at first. But yeah, the transition, it was very fluid. It was very relaxed. In fact, now we're not selling the house. We're still fixing it up, but preparing. I'd still like to move out of Utah to give my kids more of that out of Utah experience. But now we're relaxed and we're taking a step at a time.
Very good. And how can we help other people who are in that moment of pivot? Some of them might not have that luxury of being able to give a 6-month notice or even a couple week notice, but maybe they're already without work and looking to make that transition into something new.
You really need to spend some time on those search engines, LinkedIn, Glassdoor, and search for specific keywords that you feel are some of your strengths. Focus on your strengths, focus on your talents, and those positions will come out. And then get on an email list of those search engines, and they'll start emailing you positions that they think are appropriate for you. Granted that you have your resume posted on there and your job experiences posted on there, they can use that to your advantage, and they'll just start sending you all sorts of emails. And when you're on that list, that saves you lots of time for searching every day for new positions. They'll email you those positions. And when I was on those email lists, I would get all sorts of positions, and a lot of them sounded really neat. One of them was going to take me down in South Antarctica for research purposes, and we all got excited about that. I applied for that one, but I didn't hear back. So you're going to get a lot of turn downs and no replies, but just keep searching. There are jobs out there for you.
That's great. Yeah, a lot of people in the land industry, hundreds if not thousands, that just in the last year have been stepping out of the industry, looking for other ways to improve their income or their opportunities when oil was down, and now it's back up, and companies are starting to scramble again for people to fill projects, kind of competing a little bit, even service companies competing for the workers to go do services on the operations side of oil and gas. So that's good to know that the search engines are doing their job, helping people, refine that search and provide new opportunities that maybe you wouldn't be able to find on your own.
Right. And the land is still there. It's just being repurposed, whether mine permits, whether mineral permits, well permits. It's going from farm to residential. It's changing hands. It's still there, and it's just repurposing.
Mm-hmm. So tell us about your job that you're doing now.
Well, I'm now with Engie North America, which is, if not the largest, one of the largest energy companies in the world. They deal a lot with, I think they are the America's largest natural gas exporter. They deal with they actually do lighting. They'll retrofit a building with updated lighting, and then they'll make sure that the savings are there. The position that I'm in is a data acquisition engineer advisor. So my group, which is based out of Kansas City, we will go and put solar on municipalities or county buildings. Right now, our project is in Southern California, where we're putting solar on 49 elementary schools in the Chula Vista County or school district. And my position is to make sure that the equipment we put on site can communicate with each other, that we can pull the data, and that we can monitor the atmospheric conditions to determine power performance. So that communication is usually through Modbus TCP or TCP/IP communication. I'm usually or am training to be available for those that are commissioning each site, so that if something goes wrong, I can help them through getting the communication going, making sure the sensors are reading appropriately. I'm currently working on drawings, electrical schematics, to make sure that all the sensors are properly terminated, that they understand how to install them properly, and using install best practices. It is a remote position, so I don't have to move to Kansas City. So I'm able to stay here at home, but I do travel as needed to either on site or into the main office in Kansas City.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's always still in that solar field that I've been so ingrained since I was a little kid from my grandpa, and it's in a great position so far. I got great new colleagues that I can start absorbing their talent and learning new things.
Yeah, fascinating stuff going on with solar. I don't know if you saw the spotlight that we did on Phil Guerra. I think you were on that one, talking about solar.
Yep.
Interesting things going on in solar and how to do that. What's your take on things going on with restrictions on mining for minerals that are essential to renewable markets?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not one to, I'm not a person that likes to dig too much in the earth. I mean, I've got an agricultural background. I grew up on a farm, and I have even learned that no till is better than tilling. You can make that ground grow greener than ever if you don't till and you provide the certain nutrients in other ways. There's always a better way. Mining, you know, it's part of our survival as humans on this earth, and there are good practices and there are bad practices. I think it's important that we focus on how we can do it better. As the human race, that's what we strive to do, is to do things better each generation. And mining is always going to be part of our lives. We just need to know how to do it better. And when we're done in that area, to turn it back to nature and let it be better naturally.
Yeah, the whole reclamation process is pretty interesting. I think that applies to our skills too in work. You know, what you just said there, to focus on how we can do it better. And as you said earlier, to focus on when you're looking for work, looking for a different job or career change, focus on your strengths and on your experiences, the things that you can do, you have done, that those who can refer you could speak to, you know, how you've done those things and serve them, and translate that to how you can serve a future employer, a future company, future entrepreneurial venture, and the customers and clients that you can serve in that way. There's so much in our media, in our world, that really focuses on the lack, what's missing, what's different, what's inadequate. And I think that's so powerful to focus on those strengths and how we can help and serve each other.
Right.
Go ahead.
I was very fortunate to have good managers in all of my positions, and because of that, we had a great relationship. The communication between me and my managers was excellent, and when it come to an application where I needed to provide references, I provided my managers, and that to me is very honorable to be able to do, to go to your new employer or potential employer and say, yeah, go directly to my manager and ask him how I am as a person and how I am as an employer or colleague. And I think that shows great integrity when you can do that. And if you can't, that's not your fault. But to be able to have a good relationship with your manager makes your position that much better and makes a transition. It's like a bonus to your next transition, to show your new employer that, yeah, this guy's got integrity. He's a great worker.
Yeah, I think that's important. What a good foundational piece, and not always possible. Sometimes there are difficult managers or difficult situations, or they're not available or unwilling to be a reference or resource in that way. But if you can form a good relationship with the current manager and have that be a place where somebody can go directly to the source and not try to go outside of the industry. And again, I mean, that speaks to what you did as far as giving a long lead time to that current employer, is then they're on notice that you're leaving. Right. It's not a surprise. Like, they're not going to get a surprise phone call from some future employer saying, hey, this guy is interviewing for a position. I mean, you don't want that to happen, right?
Right. That's every manager's fear, I believe.
All right. Anything else you'd add as far as helping people transition or look for work that you'd add?
Don't be afraid. There are a lot of great opportunities out there, especially now in all industries, even in the real estate, the land, the technical, manufacturing. There's so many different industries that are clamoring for new employees with great talent and great desire to work hard. Make the jump. If you're thinking about it, get your resume up to date, have it checked by a third party, and make sure it's accurate and honest, and do it. It's a great ride. Nothing but a good learning experience.
Well, that's great. Great to have you with us, and enjoy having a little spotlight on you. Robert, just to transition a little bit to things we're doing in the Land Skills Network, we're in the process of launching a new mastermind group right now. Meet once a week, and people related to land. So it's the Landman Pivot podcast as part of that. We've got this mastermind group that's just getting going, and got a handful of guys, great guys with a variety of experience engaging there. And it's an opportunity to really level up leadership, networking, and communication skills. And those are skills that you can take with you wherever you go. They're so needed for people to step up to leadership, for people to be able to engage in relationships and network and interact with other people and have communication that's good, it's forward, it's able to communicate clearly a message and share a story that can serve and help other people. So if you're interested in those kinds of things, leveling up your leadership, networking, and communication, get a hold of me. Robert, if the people want to reach out to you as far as your transition or what they're going through, how can they get a hold of you?
I can give them my email. It's robert.hyatt, that's HYATT, at engie.com, ENGIE.com. I'd be happy to respond back to them.
Great. Appreciate that. And thanks for being with us and being
Yeah,
in
thank
our
you.
Land Skills Network. And as always, I enjoy being able to catch up, follow up with you.
Thank you, Ryan.